You are in medieval England, year 1347, experiencing life as a 15-year-old, daughter of a blacksmith in a small village where your destiny belongs to everyone except yourself. The hammer strikes against red-hot iron, echo through the morning air. Each blow a reminder that your father shapes metal while other men shape your fate. You are Isadora Hartwell, and today marks exactly 3 months since your monthly bleeding began. 3 months since your father started looking at you, not as his daughter, but as a commodity to be traded. The forge burns hot against your face as you deliver water to your father, William Hartwell, whose massive hands have never once touched your cheek with tenderness. He barely glances at you, his attention focused on the horseshoe taking shape under his hammer. But you know he sees you, sees the way your body has changed, the way village men now steal glances when you walk to the well. Isadora, his voice cuts through the metallic symphony. Master Edmund will visit us this evening. Your stomach drops faster than a stone in water. Master Edmund Thornfield, the wool merchant who buried his third wife last winter, and whose breath smells of rotting teeth and stale ale. At 42, he could be your grandfather, yet your father speaks of him as if he were a blessing from the Virgin Mary herself. Father, you begin, but his raised hand silences you faster than a slap. You will wear your mother's blue dress, the one with the embroidered sleeves. He returns to his hammering, each strike now sounding like a death knell, and you will smile. The workshop feels smaller suddenly, the smoke thicker. You have heard the village women whisper about Edmund's previous wives, how the first died in childbirth at 16, the second from a mysterious fever after producing no sons, and the third, well, the third simply disappeared one autumn night, though her body was found in the river come spring. But there is something else occupying your thoughts, something that makes your heart race in a way that has nothing to do with fear. Thomas Ashworth, the cooper's apprentice, with his gentle hands and eyes the color of spring moss. Just yesterday, behind the baker's shop, he had whispered words that made your soul soar. I would rather live in poverty with you than watch you married to a man who sees you as livestock. You slip away from the forge, your bare feet silent against the dirt path leading to the village well. The morning air carries the scent of fresh bread and the less pleasant odor of human waste being emptied from chamber pots. Life in your village means living intimately with both beauty and filth, hope and despair. At the well, you find Margaret Whitmore, the miller's daughter, already drawing water. Her face is pale, her hands trembling as she grips the rope. What troubles you, Margaret? You ask, though you suspect you already know. Father has promised me to Sir Roderick's steward, she whispers, her voice barely audible above the creaking of the well pulley. The man is 60 if he is a day, and his previous wife bore him no children who lived past their first winter. You take her hand, feeling the calluses from years of grinding grain, when at the harvest moon, 3 weeks hence, tears spill down her cheeks. Isadora, I would rather throw myself into this well than share a bed with that man. Your heart aches for her, but it also races with your own fear. 3 weeks. If your father has his way, you will be married to Edmund Thornfield before the leaves turn completely brown. But Thomas, Thomas has spoken of running away, of seeking our fortune in London where no one knows your name or cares about your father's debts. There might be another way, you whisper, glancing around to ensure no one overhears. Meet me at the old oak tonight, after the church bell tolls 8 times. Margaret's eyes widen. Isadora, what are you planning? Something that will either save us both or damn us forever. That evening, you dress in your mother's blue gown as commanded, the fabric feeling like a burial shroud against your skin. The embroidered sleeves, once beautiful, now seem like shackles. Your father has even insisted you wear your mother's silver cross, the one item of value your family possesses. Edmund Thornfield arrives precisely at sunset, his massive frame filling the doorway of your modest home. He brings gifts, a bolt of fine wool cloth, a small wheel of cheese, and a leather purse that jingles with coins. The price of your virginity, you think bitterly. Ah, the lovely Isadora, he says, his voice thick with satisfaction. You have grown into quite the beauty, child. Child, the word makes your skin crawl. You curtsy as your father has taught you, keeping your eyes downcast, but inside you are screaming. We shall be wed after the harvest festival, Edmund announces, as if you were not even present. I have need of a wife who can bear strong sons and manage my household. Your father nods eagerly. Isadora will make you a fine wife, Master Edmund. She is skilled in all domestic arts, and has never given me cause for concern. If only he knew about Thomas, about the stolen kisses behind the chapel, about the way your heart sings when the young man speaks of a future where you could choose your own path. The evening drags on with talk of dowries and wedding arrangements. You serve ale and bread, playing the part of the dutiful daughter while your mind races with possibilities. When Edmund finally takes his leave, promising to return on the morrow to finalize the arrangements, you wait until your father's snores echo through the house before slipping out into the night. The old oak stands like a sentinel in the moonlight, its gnarled branches reaching toward the stars. Thomas is already there, his face pale with worry. Isadora, we must act quickly, he whispers, pulling you into his arms. I have heard talk in the village. Your father has already received payment from Edmund. The wedding is to be in a fortnight, not after the harvest. Your blood turns to ice. A fortnight, but he said, men like your father and Edmund care nothing for the promises they make to women, Thomas says, his voice hard with anger. But I have a plan. My uncle in London has written to me. He has worked for a skilled cooper and has promised to help us if we can reach the city. Thomas, if we are caught, they will hang me and lock you away until you agree to marry Edmund. His hands cup your face gently. But if we do nothing, you will be dead within a year, Isadora. I have seen what happens to young wives of old men. You know he speaks the truth. The graveyard is full of women who died young, their headstones bearing the names of husbands who quickly remarried. When, you whisper, tomorrow night, during the harvest moon celebration, when the village is drunk and distracted, Thomas pulls out a small cloth bundle. I have saved what coins I could. It is not much, but it will buy us passage on a merchant's cart to London. You take the bundle, feeling its meager weight. Your entire future rests in this small package of hope. Thomas, if we do this, there is no turning back. We will be outcasts, criminals in the eyes of the law. And if we do not do this, you will be dead by Christmas, he replies grimly. The choice is yours, my love. But know that whatever you decide, I will love you until my last breath. As you return to your father's house, slipping through the shadows like a ghost, you carry with you the weight of an impossible decision. Behind you lies everything you have ever known, your father's protection, your place in the village, the safety of following the path laid out for you. Ahead lies the unknown, freedom, perhaps, but also danger, poverty, and the very real possibility of death. The next morning brings unexpected news that changes everything. Margaret Whitmore is found dead in her family's mill, her body broken beneath the great grinding wheel. The miller claims it was an accident, that she fell while working alone, but the village women whisper of suicide. They whisper of the impossible choice between a living death and a quick end. You stare at Margaret's lifeless form and see your own future reflected in her pale face. This is what awaits women who have no choice, no voice, no power over their own lives. That night, as the harvest moon rises full and bright, you make your decision. The flight to the harvest festival fills the village square with the sound of laughter, music, and drunken revelry. Barrels of ale flow freely, and even the most pious villagers allow themselves this one night of celebration before the hard work of winter preparation begins. You move through the crowd like a spectre, your heart hammering against your ribs as you seek out Thomas among the revelers. Your father, deep in his cups, barely notices as you slip away from the festivities. He is too busy accepting congratulations from other men about your upcoming marriage to Edmund Thornfield. Too busy basking in the envy of fathers whose daughters have not yet attracted such a wealthy suitor. If only they knew the true price of such fortune. Ah, William, you hear Master Edmund's voice boom across the square. Come autumn, your daughter will be mistress of the finest house in 3 villages. I have already ordered new tapestries for her chamber. New tapestries. As if beautiful wall hangings could make a prison cell more bearable. Thomas finds you near the baker's stall, his face grim with determination. Are you certain, Isadora? Once we leave this place, we can never return. Look around you, Thomas, you whisper, gesturing toward the celebrating crowd. Look at the women. See how they lower their eyes when their husbands speak. See how they flinch when a man raises his voice. This is not living. This is merely surviving. He takes your hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with yours. I have the cart waiting beyond the old bridge. We have perhaps 2 hours before the celebration ends, and people begin to notice our absence. You nod, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging in your chest. Fear, excitement, grief, and hope all battle for dominance in your heart. You are about to leave everything you have ever known, everyone you have ever cared about, for an uncertain future with a man you love but barely know. There is something else, Thomas says quietly. Something I learned today that you must know before we take this final step. What is it? Edmund Thornfield's previous wives. They did not die naturally, Isadora. Martha the seamstress told me in confidence. She prepared their bodies for burial. The first had bruises around her throat. The second had been beaten so severely that Martha could barely recognize her face. And the third, the third was with child when she died, a son. Edmund flew into a rage when the babe was born dead, claiming she had cursed his heir with her wickedness. Your blood runs cold. You knew Edmund was old and cruel, but to learn he was also a murderer. It changes everything and nothing. You already knew you could not marry him and live. Now you simply know why. Then we have no choice. You say, your voice steady despite the fear coursing through your veins. We leave tonight, or I am dead within the year. Thomas nods grimly. There is one final thing. I managed to send word to my uncle in London. He has arranged for us to be married by a priest who asks no questions about bans or parental consent. Once we are wed, the law will protect us from pursuit. And if we are caught before we reach London, then we will face whatever comes together, Thomas says, lifting your joined hands to his lips. I would rather die free with you than live in chains without you. The journey to the old bridge takes you through the darkest part of the village, past the cemetery where so many young wives lie buried. You pause at Margaret's fresh grave, saying a silent prayer for her soul and a promise that her death will not be in vain. The cart is exactly where Thomas promised, driven by a grizzled merchant named John, who asks no questions and keeps his eyes fixed on the road ahead. You climb into the back, hiding beneath sacks of grain and wool, your heart pounding so loudly you are certain the entire village can hear it. Once we cross the river, we will be beyond your father's immediate reach, Thomas whispers, his hand finding yours in the darkness. But we must remain hidden until we reach the next county. The cart begins to move, its wheels creaking against the rough stone bridge. Each rotation takes you further from everything you have ever known and closer to a future you can barely imagine. London, a city of thousands, where a young woman might walk the streets without every soul knowing her name and her shame. But freedom, you are learning, comes with its own price. Hours pass in uncomfortable silence, broken only by the sound of the cartwheels and the merchant's occasional grunts. Your body aches from the cramped position, and the rough sackcloth scratches against your skin. Yet you dare not complain, dare not even whisper, for fear of discovery. When dawn begins to break across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, you finally dare to peer out from beneath your hiding place. The landscape has changed completely. Gone are the familiar fields and woods of your childhood. In their place stretch rolling hills dotted with unfamiliar villages, their church spires reaching toward heaven like fingers of hope. We can rest safely here, the merchant says, pulling the cart to a stop beside a small stream. Your father's men, if they pursue, will not think to look this far east. You and Thomas climbed down from the cart, your legs shaking from both the rough journey and the magnitude of what you have done. You are now officially fugitives, criminals who have stolen away in the night like common thieves. But as Thomas takes you in his arms beside the gentle stream, as the morning sun warms your face and birds sing in the trees above, you feel something you have never experienced before, the intoxicating taste of freedom. No regrets? Thomas asks, his green eyes searching your face. None. You lie, for how can you explain the complex tangle of emotions in your heart? Relief and terror, joy and grief, hope and despair, all existing simultaneously in your chest, like a living thing. The merchant, John, produces bread and cheese from his pack, sharing his simple meal with you and Thomas. As you eat, he tells you of London, of the opportunities that await those brave enough to seize them. The city is not kind to the weak, he warns, but for those with courage and determination, it offers something your village never could, the chance to write your own story, your own story. The phrase sends a thrill through your heart. For 15 years, your story has been written by others, your father, the village customs, the church, the law. But now, perhaps, you can take up the pen yourself. There is something else you should know, John continues, his weathered face growing serious. Word travels fast among merchants. Your father has already discovered your absence. He rode out at dawn with 6 men, heading toward the coast. He believes you have fled to seek passage to France. Thomas grips your hand tighter. Then we have time. While he searches the ports, we can make our way to London. But be warned, John says grimly. He has offered a substantial reward for your return, 20 silver pieces, more than most men earn in a year. There will be those who would sell their own mothers for such a sum, 20 silver pieces. The amount staggers you. Your father, who claimed poverty whenever you asked for new shoes or a warm cloak, has somehow found 20 silver pieces to ensure your return to a marriage that will destroy you. Where would he get such money? You ask, though you fear you already know the answer. Edmund Thornfield has already paid your bride price, Thomas says quietly. Your father cannot afford to lose that investment. To him, you are no longer his daughter. You are a debt that must be repaid. The reality of your situation settles over you like a cold fog. You are not just running toward freedom. You are running from men who see you as property, as a commodity to be bought and sold. And in the eyes of the law, they are right. A daughter belongs to her father until she belongs to her husband. You have no legal right to choose your own path, but you have chosen anyway, and that choice has made you dangerous. As the day progresses and you travel deeper into unknown territory, you begin to understand that your flight from an unwanted marriage has become something much larger. You are no longer just Isadora Hartwell, the blacksmith's daughter. You are a symbol of rebellion, a woman who dared to say no when the world demanded your compliance. The question now is whether you are strong enough to survive the consequences of your defiance. By evening, you reach a crossroads where 3 paths diverge. One leads north toward the great port cities, one south toward the capital, and one west back toward the life you have abandoned. Choose carefully, John warns. The path you take now will determine not just where you go, but who you become. As you stand at this literal and metaphorical crossroads, you realize that your journey has only just begun. Behind you lies the familiar world of arranged marriages and silent obedience. Ahead lies the unknown, filled with both terrible dangers and unprecedented opportunities. Thomas squeezes your hand, his eyes full of love and determination. Whatever path we choose it together. You look back one final time toward the western path that leads home, toward the life that was planned for you. Then you turn your face toward London, toward the uncertain future that awaits. Together, you agree and step forward into the unknown. The price of freedom. London rises before you like a beast of stone and smoke, its countless chimneys belching dark clouds into the grey sky. The city walls stretch higher than any building in your village, and the sound that emerges from within, a constant roar of voices, wheels and commerce, makes your heart race with both excitement and terror. "Sweet Mary," you whisper, clutching Thomas's arm as your cart approaches the massive gates. "How do so many people live in one place?" The merchant, John, chuckles at your wonder. "You have seen nothing yet, girl. Wait until you experience the markets of Cheapside or the docks along the Thames. London is a world unto itself, with its own laws and customs. As you pass through the gates, the assault on your senses is overwhelming. The smell hits you first, a mixture of roasting meat, human waste, rotting fish, and something else you cannot identify but suspect is the scent of thousands of people living too close together. The narrow streets teem with humanity, merchants hawking their wares, ladies in fine gowns picking their way delicately through the mud, beggars displaying their afflictions for coins, and children darting between the adults like swift-moving shadows. Stay close, Thomas warns, his hand firm on your elbow. It is easy to become lost in these crowds, and not all who wander London's streets have honest intentions. John leads you through a maze of twisting alleys to a modest inn called the Prancing Pony, where the proprietor, a stout woman named Goodwife Marsh, eyes you with shrewd assessment. "Runaways," she states flatly, not asking but declaring. "I can smell the fear on you both, mixed with the stench of desperation and fool's hope." Thomas bristles at her bluntness, but you find yourself oddly comforted by her directness. "We seek honest work and a place to make our lives," you say, meeting her gaze steadily. "Honest work," she repeats, her tone suggesting she has heard such claims before. "And what skills do you possess, girl? Can you read and write? Do you know mathematics? Can you keep accounts or manage servants?" "I can, ... I can sew and cook and clean," you stammer, suddenly aware of how limited your accomplishments must sound in this vast city. So can half the women in London, and most of them were born here with families to vouch for them. Goodwife Marsh's expression softens slightly. "But I suppose everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. I have need of a serving girl in my tap room. The work is hard, the customers often crude, but I pay fair wages and provide a safe place to sleep. And, for me," Thomas asks, "you say you are a cooper's apprentice. Master Aldrich on Barrel Street has been seeking help. His old apprentice ran off to sea last month. If you can prove your skill, he might take you on. Hope blooms in your chest like a flower after rain. Honest work, fair wages, a safe place to sleep. It is more than you dared dream when you fled your village." But Goodwife Marsh is not finished. "However, there is something you must understand about London. This city has a way of testing newcomers, of determining whether they have the strength to belong here. You have fled from one set of troubles, but you may find you have run directly into another." Her words prove prophetic sooner than you could have imagined. The next morning, as you learn the rhythm of serving ale and bread to the inn's patrons, a commotion erupts in the street outside. Through the window, you see a group of men on horseback, their travel-stained clothes and determined expressions immediately recognizable. "Thomas," you breathe, your voice barely a whisper, "my father has found us." William Hartwell sits astride his horse like an avenging angel, his weathered face set in lines of rage and determination. Beside him rides Edmund Thornfield, his bulk making his poor horse sway beneath him. The other 4 men you recognize as villagers, men your father has paid or convinced to join this hunt for his wayward daughter. "Where is she?" Your father's voice booms through the inn's common room as he crashes through the door. "I know the ungrateful girl is here." Someone reported seeing a cart matching John the merchant's description. Goodwife Marsh steps forward, her expression calm despite the intimidating presence of 6 armed men. I do not know what girl you seek, but I run a respectable establishment. If you have accusations to make, you can make them to the constable. I am her father, William declares, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. She is my property, stolen from me by this worthless boy. I have every right to take back what belongs to me. Property. The word hits you like a physical blow. Your own father, speaking of you as if you were a horse or a piece of furniture to be reclaimed. Edmund Thornfield pushes forward, his small eyes glittering with malice. The girl is promised to me, bought and paid for. Her father has accepted my bride price, and by law, she is mine until the day I die. By law, perhaps, comes a new voice from the doorway. But by the laws of God and conscience, no woman belongs to any man like a chattel. The speaker is a young man in clerical robes, his face kind but his voice firm with authority. Behind him stand 3 other men, each bearing the bearing of education and position. Father Benedict, Goodwife Marsh, says with obvious relief, "Thank the Virgin you are here. I came as soon as I heard," the priest says, his eyes taking in the scene with quick intelligence. "Master Hartwell, I understand your concern for your daughter's welfare, but you cannot simply drag her from this place by force. She is my daughter." Your father roars, "She will obey me as God commands." "God commands many things," Father Benedict replies calmly, "including that we treat one another with Christian charity and respect. Your daughter, if she is indeed here, deserves the right to speak for herself. From your hiding place behind the kitchen door, you make a decision that will change everything. You step forward, your chin raised despite the terror coursing through your veins. "I am here," you say, your voice steadier than you feel, "and I will not return with you, Father." The silence that follows is deafening. Your father's face turns purple with rage, while Edmund's expression grows cold and calculating. "You will come home," your father says, his voice low and dangerous. "You will marry Master Edmund as agreed, or I will see you beaten until you cannot stand." "No," you say, the word feeling foreign on your tongue. How many times in your life have you wanted to say no to your father and lacked the courage? "I will not marry a man who has murdered 3 wives. I will not be sold like livestock to pay your debts." Edmund's face goes white at your accusation. "Lies," he sputters. "Vicious lies from an ungrateful child." But you see the truth in his eyes, the flash of guilt and fear that confirms what Thomas told you. This man is a killer, and your father was willing to hand you over to him for 20 pieces of silver. "The bruises on your wives' bodies were no accidents," you continue, drawing strength from the horrified gasps of the inn's other patrons. "Martha, the seamstress, told Thomas the truth before we left. She prepared their bodies for burial. She saw what you did to them." Silence. Edmund roars, lunging toward you with his hands outstretched. But Thomas steps between you, his young face set with determination. "You will not touch her," he says quietly. "Not now, not ever. A cooper's whelp dares to defy me." Edmund's hand goes to his sword. "I will gut you like a fish, boy." "Enough." Father Benedict's voice cuts through the tension like a blade. "There will be no violence in this place. Master Edmund, if there is truth to these accusations, there is no truth to them." Edmund snaps. "The girl is a liar and a whore who has been corrupted by this boy's honeyed words." The word whore hangs in the air like a curse. You feel its weight, its power to destroy your reputation and future with a single syllable. In your village, to be called a whore by a man of Edmund's standing would be the end of everything. But this is not your village. This is London, where different rules apply. "If I am a whore," you say with deadly calm, "what does that make you?" "A man who pays for women who cannot refuse him, who beats them until they die, who murders unborn children in his rage." The crowd murmurs angrily. Even in medieval times, even in a world where women have few rights, there are lines that decent people will not cross. The murder of pregnant women is one of them. Father Benedict looks at Edmund with new eyes. These are serious accusations, Master Thornfield. Perhaps we should discuss this matter with the Archbishop. Double quotes. I will not be questioned by anyone, Edmund shouts, his composure finally cracking. The girl is mine by right of purchase, and I will have her. He draws his sword, the blade gleaming in the firelight. But instead of advancing on Thomas, he turns toward you, his eyes filled with the same murderous rage that killed his previous wives. If I cannot have you as my wife, he snarls, then no one will have you at all. The blade arcs toward your throat, and time seems to slow. You see Thomas moving to intercept, see your father's shocked face as he realizes his greed has led to this moment. See Father Benedict reaching for his own weapon. But it is Goodwife Marsh who acts first. Her heavy iron poker catches Edmund across the temple with a sound like splitting wood. The wool merchant crumples to the floor, his sword clattering away harmlessly. In my inn, she says calmly, as if she has just swatted a troublesome fly, we protect those who deserve protection. Edmund lies motionless, blood pooling beneath his head. Your father stares at his fallen business partner, his face a mask of shock and growing understanding. He was going to kill her, your father whispers, as if the reality of what he has done is finally penetrating his skull. I gave my daughter to a man who was going to kill her. Father Benedict kneels beside Edmund's still form, checking for signs of life. He lives, but barely. He will need a surgeon if he is to survive. He looks up at your father with eyes full of judgment. Perhaps you should consider whether a man who would draw a sword on an unarmed girl is the sort of person you want in your family. The fight goes out of your father like air from a punctured bladder. He looks at you with new eyes, seeing, perhaps for the first time, not a commodity to be sold, but a daughter who nearly died because of his greed. Isadora, he says quietly, I did not know, ... You did not want to know, you reply, your voice heavy with sadness rather than anger. You saw only the bride price, not the danger. The moment stretches between you like a bridge across a chasm. On one side lies your old life, your father's forgiveness, a return to the familiar world of your village. On the other side lies the unknown future you have chosen, with Thomas and the possibility of genuine freedom. Come home, your father says, his voice breaking. Come home, and I will find you a different husband, a kind man who will treat you well. The offer is tempting. You could return to your village, marry someone acceptable, live the life expected of you. It would be safer, easier, more certain than the path you have chosen. But you have tasted freedom now, and you cannot go back to captivity, no matter how gilded the cage. I am home, father, you say gently. This is where I belong now. Your father's shoulders slump in defeat. He looks around the inn, at the priest, at Thomas, at the woman who struck down the man who would have been his son-in-law. Then God help you, he says quietly. God help you both, as your father and his men load the unconscious Edmund onto a cart for the journey home. You realize that your real adventure is just beginning. You have won this battle, but the war for your freedom is far from over. In medieval England, women who defy their fathers and refuse arranged marriages do not simply disappear into happy endings. They become targets, symbols, cautionary tales. Your defiance has made you famous in the worst possible way, and fame in the 14th century can be more dangerous than any sword. But you have also discovered something powerful within yourself, the courage to say no, to fight for your own life, to choose love over security. As Thomas takes your hand and Father Benedict begins to speak of marriage ceremonies that require no parental consent, you realize that your story is just beginning. The question now is whether you are strong enough to survive the story you have chosen to write. The shadow of the church, 3 weeks have passed since Edmund Thornfield fell unconscious in the inn, and London has begun to feel less like a foreign wilderness and more like a place where you might actually belong. Thomas has secured steady work with Master Aldrich, his skilled hands quickly proving their worth in the cooperage. You have found your rhythm serving ale and bread to the inn's patrons, earning enough coins to pay for your small room and simple meals. But peace, you are learning, is a luxury that fugitive women cannot afford for long. There are men asking questions about you, Goodwife Marsh warns as you wipe down the wooden tables after the morning rush. Churchmen, they came yesterday while you were at market with Thomas. Your blood turns cold. What sort of questions? Questions about your virtue, your relationship with the boy, whether you have been properly married before God. Her weathered face is grave with concern. They spoke of corrupted morals and the need to save wayward souls from damnation. You sink onto the nearest bench, your legs suddenly unable to support you. You had hoped that Edmund's unconscious state would end the threat he posed, but it seems his malice extends even beyond his ability to speak. Someone has been filling their ears with poison, Goodwife Marsh continues. Tales of a young woman who fled her rightful marriage to live in sin with a man not her husband. They speak of you as a cautionary tale, a symbol of what happens when women are allowed to follow their own desires instead of God's plan. The irony is bitter as gall. You fled to avoid becoming the victim of a murderer, but the church sees only a disobedient daughter who chose lust over duty. Thomas enters the common room, his face bright with the satisfaction of honest work well done, but his expression darkens when he sees your pale complexion. What has happened? Goodwife Marsh explains the situation while you struggle to process the implications. In medieval England, the church's word carries more weight than the king's in matters of morality. If they have decided you are a corrupted woman living in sin, your life in London becomes impossible. We must marry immediately, Thomas says, his practical mind cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Father Benedict can perform the ceremony. Once we are wed before God, their accusations lose their power. It is not that simple, Goodwife Marsh sighs. The churchmen who came here were not local priests seeking to help wayward souls. They wore the robes of the Inquisition. Someone with significant influence has asked them to investigate your case specifically. The Inquisition. The very word makes your soul shrivel with terror. These are the men who hunt heretics and witches, who see corruption and conspiracy in every deviation from prescribed behavior. They do not seek to save souls, they seek to make examples. Who would have such influence? You ask, though you fear you already know the answer. Edmund Thornfield's family has connections throughout the church hierarchy, Thomas says grimly. His brother is a bishop in Canterbury. Even unconscious, Edmund can still reach out to destroy us. The trap is elegant in its simplicity. Edmund cannot force you to marry him, but he can ensure that your refusal destroys your chance for any other happiness. If the Inquisition brands you a corrupted woman, no honest man will employ you. No respectable establishment will house you, and no priest will perform a marriage ceremony on your behalf. There is one possibility, Father Benedict says, when he arrives that evening, his young face troubled. But it would require great courage from both of you. We will do whatever is necessary, Thomas replies immediately. The church's power, while great, is not absolute within London's walls. The city has its own customs, its own protections for those who serve its interests. If you could find a patron among the merchant guilds, someone powerful enough to shield you from ecclesiastical interference. What sort of patron, you ask? Someone who values skilled craftsmen and loyal servants above the opinions of country bishops. Father Benedict explains. Master Aldrich speaks highly of Thomas's work. Perhaps he would be willing to sponsor you both for guild membership. Guild membership, the phrase carries weight you are only beginning to understand. In London, the guilds function almost like small kingdoms, with their own laws and protection for members. A guild member accused of moral corruption would receive a hearing before his peers, not automatic condemnation from distant church authorities, but guild membership for a woman, especially a woman of common birth with no family connections, is almost unheard of. The Brewers Guild occasionally admits women, Father Benedict continues, especially those who show exceptional skill in their craft. Goodwife Marsh, You have influence there. Could you speak for Isadora? I could, she says slowly, but guild membership requires more than skill. It requires sponsorship from 3 current members, a substantial fee, and proof of moral character. Moral character, the very thing the churchmen seek to destroy. How much time do we have? Thomas asks. Not long, Father Benedict admits. I have heard rumors that formal charges will be brought before the week's end. Once the Inquisition officially declares you a corrupted woman, even the guilds will not be able to protect you. That night, you lie awake in your small room above the inn, listening to the sounds of London's nightlife through the thin walls. Somewhere in the darkness below, men and women pursue their own desperate dreams of survival and success. How many of them, you wonder, have fled from lives they could not bear? How many have discovered that freedom comes with a price they had not expected to pay? The next morning brings an unexpected visitor. Lady Catherine Whitmore arrives at the inn in a modest carriage, her fine clothes marking her as nobility despite her attempt at discretion. She is a woman of perhaps 30 years, with intelligent eyes and the bearing of someone accustomed to being obeyed. I seek the young woman called Isadora Hartwell, she announces. You step forward nervously, uncertain what this elegant lady could want with a fugitive blacksmith's daughter. You knew my cousin, Lady Catherine says simply. Margaret Whitmore, the miller's daughter. She wrote to me before her death, telling me of your plans to flee your arranged marriage. Margaret, sweet, frightened Margaret, who chose death rather than submit to an unwanted husband. Your heart aches with the memory of her pale face at the village well. Margaret was dear to me, Lady Catherine continues. When I learned of her death, I made inquiries about the circumstances. What I discovered about the men your father and her father chose as husbands, ... It sickened me. My lady, I am sorry for your loss, but I do not understand why you have come here. Lady Catherine's smile is sharp as a blade. I have come because Margaret's death opened my eyes to the horrors that await women who have no choice in their own fates. I have decided to do something about it. She produces a leather purse, heavy with coins. This is Margaret's inheritance, which would have been her dowry. I choose to use it differently. Consider it a loan, to be repaid when you are able, for the guild fees and other expenses you will need to secure your freedom. The generosity is overwhelming, but you sense there is more to Lady Catherine's offer than simple charity. What do you ask in return? Nothing immediately, she replies. But someday, when you are established and secure, I may have need of a woman who understands what it means to choose freedom over safety. There are other girls like Margaret, other women trapped in impossible situations. They will need help from someone who has walked this path before them. The weight of her words settles over you like a mantle. Lady Catherine is not just offering financial assistance, she is offering you a purpose, a reason for your struggles beyond your own survival. I accept, you say, surprising yourself with the firmness in your voice. Excellent. Lady Catherine turns to include Thomas and Goodwife Marsh in her attention. Now, let us discuss how to defeat these church investigators before they can do any more damage. The plan that emerges is audacious in its simplicity. Instead of hiding from the Inquisition's charges, you will meet them head-on. Lady Catherine's connections will ensure that your guild hearing takes place before the church can formalize their accusations. Master Aldrich will sponsor Thomas for membership in the Coopers Guild, while Goodwife Marsh will present you to the Brewers Guild as a candidate for provisional membership. But the most crucial element of the plan involves Father Benedict performing a marriage ceremony that very evening, witnessed by guild masters and recorded in the official church registry. Once you are legally married, the church's accusations of living in sin become meaningless. It is risky, Lady Catherine warns. If the plan fails, you will have made powerful enemies who will pursue you far beyond London's borders. But if it succeeds, you will have established a new life that no country bishop can touch. As the sun sets over London's smoky skyline, You stand before Father Benedict in the inn's common room. Wearing a simple blue dress borrowed from Goodwife Marsh, Thomas stands beside you in his finest clothes, his green eyes bright with love and determination. The witnesses include Master Aldrich, 3 Brewers Guild members, and Lady Catherine herself. Do you, Isadora Hartwell, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and honor in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, until death do you part? I do, you whisper, the words carrying more weight than any crown. Do you, Thomas Ashworth, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to love and cherish, to protect and provide for, until death do you part? I do, Thomas replies, his voice strong and sure. By the power vested in me by God and the Church, I pronounce you husband and wife. The kiss that seals your marriage tastes of freedom and hope, of choices made freely rather than imposed by others. As the witnesses cheer and Goodwife Marsh produces ale to celebrate, you realize that you have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. You are no longer Isadora Hartwell, the blacksmith's daughter. You are Isadora Ashworth, guild member, wife, and free woman. The girl who fled her village in terror has become a woman who faces her enemies with courage. But even as you celebrate this victory, you know the real test is yet to come. Tomorrow, you will face the guildmasters and prove your worth. Tomorrow, the church investigators will learn that their quarry has slipped through their fingers once again. Tomorrow, you will discover whether love and courage are enough to overcome the forces arrayed against you. The guild's judgment, the great hall of the brewers, guild rises before you like a cathedral dedicated to commerce rather than God. Massive oak beams support a vaulted ceiling, and the walls are lined with portraits of guild masters stretching back generations. The air smells of hops and barley, sweat and ambition, dreams realized and crushed in equal measure. You stand in the center of the hall, acutely aware that every eye is upon you. The guildmasters sit in judgment behind a curved table that seems designed to make petitioners feel small and insignificant. Master Aldrich has already presented Thomas to the Coopers Guild, where his skills quickly earned him provisional membership. Now it is your turn to face scrutiny. Isadora Ashworth, Guildmaster Harrison intones, his voice echoing through the chamber. You seek membership in the Brewers Guild, despite being a woman of common birth, with no family connections to our trade. This is ... unusual. Unusual. The word carries the weight of centuries of tradition, of expectations about women's proper place in society. You force yourself to stand straighter, to meet his gaze with confidence you do not entirely feel. Master Harrison, you reply, I seek membership based on skill and dedication, not birth or gender. I offer the guild valuable service in exchange for its protection and recognition. And what service might that be? Asks Master Elizabeth Fairfax, one of only 3 women to hold guild rank. Her tone is skeptical but not unkind. Goodwife Marsh speaks highly of your work at her inn, but serving ale is hardly the same as brewing it. This is the moment you have prepared for, the test that will determine your future in London. From beneath your cloak, you produce a small keg of ale you have been brewing in secret for the past 2 weeks, using techniques learned from your grandmother combined with innovations of your own devising. I offer this ale for your judgment, you say, setting the keg on the table before the guildmasters. It is brewed with a combination of traditional methods and new techniques that improve both flavor and preservation. Master Harrison raises an eyebrow. You claim to have improved upon methods perfected over generations. I claim to have learned from tradition while seeking ways to build upon it. You correct. Progress comes not from abandoning the old ways, but from understanding them well enough to make them better. Goodwife Marsh steps forward with cups and a tapping tool. The ceremony of testing your brew takes on the solemnity of a religious ritual. Each guildmaster receives a portion, examining the color and clarity before tasting. Their faces reveal nothing as they sample your work. The silence stretches until you feel certain your heart will burst from the tension. Everything depends on this moment. Your marriage, your future, your very survival in London. The flavor is excellent, Master Fairfax admits finally, clean and bright, with a complexity I have not encountered before. What is your secret? I use a 2-stage fermentation process. You explain, your confidence growing as you discuss your craft. The first stage follows traditional methods, but I then transfer the ale to a second vessel with additional ingredients that enhance both taste and longevity. Interesting, Master Harrison muses. And you developed this technique yourself. I adapted it from methods my grandmother used for preserving fruit. You say honestly. She taught me that fermentation is a living process that can be guided but not forced. The guild masters exchange glances, their expressions unreadable. You wait, scarcely daring to breathe, as they deliberate in whispers too low for you to hear. The hall's great doors suddenly burst open with a crash that echoes through the chamber like thunder. Church investigators stride into the sacred space of the guild, their black robes a stark contrast to the warm brown wood surrounding them. Stop these proceedings immediately, demands Brother Marcus, the lead investigator. His pale face is set in lines of righteous fury. This woman is under investigation for moral corruption and cannot be granted guild membership until the church has completed its inquiry. Master Harrison's face darkens with anger. Brother Marcus, you forget yourself. This is guild property, and guild law supersedes church authority in matters of trade and membership. The church's authority supersedes all earthly concerns when matters of morality are involved. Brother Marcus replies coldly, this woman has fled from her rightful marriage to live in sin with a man not her husband. She is a corrupted influence who brings shame upon any institution that embraces her. The accusation hangs in the air like a curse. You feel the weight of every gaze in the chamber, the judgment of people who know nothing of your story except what the church investigators choose to tell them. But before you can respond, Thomas steps forward from his place among the observers. Brother Marcus, you speak of matters that no longer concern the church. Isadora and I were married yesterday evening by Father Benedict, with proper witnesses and full church sanction. Your accusations are based on outdated information. Brother Marcus's face flushes red. Impossible. No proper priest would perform such a ceremony without bans being posted and parental consent obtained. Father Benedict is as proper a priest as any in London. Master Harrison interjects, his voice carrying the authority of his position. If he has certified the marriage, the church's concerns about unmarried cohabitation become irrelevant. Furthermore, adds Master Fairfax, producing a document from her robes, guild records show that Isadora Ashworth has been sponsored for membership by 3 current guild members and has demonstrated exceptional skill in her craft. The guild's decision is based on merit, not marital status. Brother Marcus's eyes narrow as he realizes his carefully laid trap has been anticipated and avoided. This is not over, he says, his voice low and threatening. The church has a long memory for those who defy its authority, as does the guild. Master Harrison replies calmly, we protect our members from all threats, temporal and spiritual. The confrontation ends with Brother Marcus and his associates retreating from the hall, but their departure feels more like a strategic withdrawal than a defeat. You sense that this battle is won, but the war continues. Now then, Master Harrison says, as if the interruption had never occurred, we return to the matter at hand. Isadora Ashworth, the guild has reviewed your application, tested your skills, and found both satisfactory. However, your unusual circumstances require unusual measures. Your heart sinks. Even success, it seems, comes with conditions and complications. You will be granted provisional membership for a period of 1 year, Master Fairfax explains. During that time, you will work under the supervision of an established guild member, demonstrating not only your brewing skills, but your commitment to guild values and traditions. At the year's end, you may apply for full membership. It is not everything you hoped for, but it is more than you dared expect. Provisional membership still grants you the Guild's protection and recognition, the right to practice your trade within London's walls, and most importantly, a legitimate status that makes the Church's accusations powerless. I accept these terms gratefully, you say, bowing deeply to the assembled masters. Your supervisor will be Goodwife Marsh, Master Harrison announces. She has volunteered to oversee your training and vouch for your character. Do not disappoint her trust. As the formal proceedings conclude and Guild members begin to disperse, Lady Catherine approaches with a smile of satisfaction. Well done, she says quietly. You have achieved something remarkable here today. Not just membership, but respect. The Guildmasters were impressed by your skill and your composure under pressure. It feels like a dream, you admit. 3 months ago, I was a blacksmith's daughter with no future except marriage to a murderer. Now, I am a Guild member with a trade of my own. Dreams have a way of becoming reality when we have the courage to pursue them, Lady Catherine replies. But remember what I told you about helping other women who face impossible choices. Your success today is not just your own. It is a beacon of hope for every girl who believes she has no options. That evening, you and Thomas celebrate your dual victories at the Prancing Pony. Thomas's acceptance into the Coopers Guild, combined with your provisional membership in the Brewers Guild, gives you both protection and opportunity you never could have imagined in your village. But as you lie in Thomas's arms that night, officially his wife for the first time, you cannot shake the memory of Brother Marcus's threatening words. The Church has a long memory, and powerful enemies do not simply disappear because they have suffered one defeat. Are you frightened? Thomas asks, his voice soft in the darkness. Terrified, you admit, but also exhilarated. We have done something that should have been impossible. A blacksmith's daughter and a cooper's apprentice have made themselves into Guild members in London. If we can do that, perhaps we can survive whatever comes next. Together, Thomas murmurs, his arms tightening around you. Together, you agree, and for the first time since leaving your village, you dare to believe that your story might have a happy ending. But happiness, you are learning, is something that must be fought for every day. And there are forces gathering in the shadows that will test your newfound strength in ways you cannot yet imagine. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new enemies, new tests of your resolve. But tonight, you are Isadora Ashworth, Guild member, wife, and free woman. Tonight, that is enough. The final test. Winter settles over London like a grey shroud, bringing with it a chill that seeps through stone walls and wooden shutters to freeze the very soul. 6 months have passed since your marriage and Guild acceptance, and you have settled into a rhythm of life that feels almost normal. Your brewing business thrives under Goodwife Marsh's guidance. Thomas's skill as a cooper has earned him respect among the craftsmen, and your small room above the inn has become a true home. But normalcy, you have learned, is a luxury that women like you can never fully trust. The first sign of trouble comes on a bitter February morning when Lady Catherine arrives at the inn with news that turns your blood to ice. Edmund Thornfield has recovered, she announces without preamble. He has returned to his estates and is demanding justice for what he calls your theft of his lawful bride. Your hands shake as you set down the ale cup you have been cleaning. But I am married now, legally married before God and witnesses. He has no claim on me. He argues that the marriage is invalid because it was performed without your father's consent. Lady Catherine explains. He has petitioned the church courts to have it annulled, claiming that you were already promised to him and therefore not free to wed another. The familiar terror rises in your throat like bile, even from a distance. Even defeated and humiliated, Edmund Thornfield continues to reach out with his malice to destroy your happiness. What power do the church courts have over Guild members? Thomas asks, his face pale with worry. More than we would like, Lady Catherine admits. The guilds can protect you from commercial disputes and civil authorities. But matters of marriage and morality fall under church jurisdiction. If they rule in Edmund's favor, she does not need to finish the sentence. If the church annuls your marriage, you become an unmarried woman living in sin with a man not your husband. Guild membership, legal protection, social standing, all of it disappears in an instant. There is more, Lady Catherine continues grimly. Edmund has not been idle during his recovery. He has used his family's connections to build a case against you that goes beyond simple marriage disputes. They are preparing to accuse you of witchcraft. The word hits you like a physical blow. Witchcraft in medieval England. It is the ultimate weapon against women who dare to step outside prescribed boundaries. A woman who brews ale with innovative techniques, who defies her father's will, who influences other women to question their circumstances. Such a woman becomes dangerous to the established order. On what grounds? Goodwife Marsh demands, her weathered face flushed with anger. They claim your brewing methods involve unnatural processes, Lady Catherine explains. The two-stage fermentation technique you've developed is being described as evidence of supernatural knowledge. They point to your influence over other women as proof of bewitchment. Most damaging of all, they have found witnesses who will testify that you predicted Margaret Whitmore's death. I did no such thing, you protest. You spoke with Margaret about her despair over her arranged marriage, Lady Catherine says gently. You warned her that marrying Sir Roderick Stewart would be dangerous. In hindsight, those conversations can be twisted to suggest prophetic knowledge of her fate. The trap is elegant and terrible. Every act of compassion, every moment of intelligence, every success you have achieved is being transformed into evidence of supernatural corruption. The very qualities that helped you survive are now being used to destroy you. How long do we have? Thomas asks. The formal hearing is set for next week, Lady Catherine replies. But that is not our greatest concern. Edmund has hired witch hunters. The silence that follows is deafening. Witch hunters operate outside normal legal channels, pursuing their quarry with methods that make church investigations seem gentle by comparison. They are not interested in justice or truth, only in spectacular confessions that justify their fees. Professional witch hunters care nothing for guild protection or marriage certificates. Lady Catherine continues. They will take you by force if necessary, extract whatever confession they require through torture, and deliver you to the flames with great ceremony. Edmund has paid them well to ensure your destruction. You sink onto a bench, overwhelmed by the scope of the forces arrayed against you. It seems impossible that one man's wounded pride could reach so far, could threaten not just your life, but the lives of everyone who has helped you. I will not run again, you say quietly. I will not spend the rest of my life fleeing from one threat to another. If I must face these accusations, then I will face them here, where I have friends and allies. Courage is admirable, Lady Catherine says, but it will not save you from the flames. We need a strategy that addresses not just the legal charges, but the political forces behind them. What do you propose? Lady Catherine's smile is sharp and calculating. We give them a spectacle they did not expect. Instead of hiding from the accusations, we demand a public trial where you can defend yourself before the entire city. We force them to present their evidence in the light of day, where inconsistencies and lies become obvious. That is incredibly dangerous, Thomas protests. Public trials for witchcraft often become public executions. True, Lady Catherine acknowledges, but they also sometimes become public vindications. If Isadora can demonstrate that her knowledge comes from study and observation rather than supernatural sources, if she can show that her influence over other women stems from wisdom rather than magic, then the accusations collapse. The plan that emerges over the following days is audacious beyond anything you have attempted before. Instead of simply defending yourself against charges of witchcraft, you will go on the offensive, challenging the very foundations of Edmund's case. Master Fairfax uses her influence within the guild to demand that any trial involving a guild member be conducted publicly, with guild representatives present to ensure fairness. Father Benedict rallies. progressive elements within the church who opposed the growing hysteria surrounding witchcraft accusations. Lady Catherine mobilizes her social connections to ensure that prominent citizens attend the trial as observers. Most importantly, you spend every available hour documenting your brewing techniques, preparing demonstrations that prove your methods rely on natural processes rather than supernatural intervention. You gather testimonies from women you have helped, showing that your influence stems from practical advice rather than magical compulsion. The night before the trial, you lie awake listening to London's nighttime sounds, the calls of watchmen, the distant laughter from taverns, the scurrying of rats in the walls. Tomorrow will determine whether you live or die, whether your story ends in triumph or tragedy. Whatever happens, Thomas whispers in the darkness, know that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. You have shown me what courage looks like, what it means to fight for something greater than yourself. Do not speak as if we are already defeated. You reply, though your voice trembles with fear. Tomorrow, we prove that intelligence is not witchcraft, that independence is not corruption, that women who choose their own paths are not servants of evil. The morning of the trial dawns grey and cold, with a bitter wind that cuts through cloaks and chills the bone. The great hall where your fate will be decided overflows with spectators, guild members, church officials, curious citizens, and the grim-faced witch hunters Edmund has imported for this purpose. You enter the hall wearing your finest dress, your head held high despite the terror coursing through your veins. Beside you walks Thomas, and behind you march the allies who have chosen to stand with you regardless of the personal cost. Edmund Thornfield sits in the gallery reserved for accusers, his face bearing the scars of his encounter with Goodwife Marcia's poker. His eyes burn with a hatred so intense it seems to heat the air around him. The trial begins with the formal reading of charges. You are accused of practicing witchcraft, of corrupting the natural order through supernatural means, of influencing good Christian women to abandon their proper duties through magical compulsion. The evidence presented against you is a masterwork of twisted logic and selective interpretation. Your brewing innovations become proof of unnatural knowledge. Your friendship with Margaret Whitmore becomes evidence of prophetic powers. Your success in establishing yourself in London becomes demonstration of supernatural assistance. But when your turn comes to respond, you are ready. I stand before you not as a witch, but as a woman who has learned that knowledge and determination can overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. You begin, your voice carrying clearly through the packed hall. Every technique I use in brewing can be demonstrated and explained. Every piece of advice I have given to other women stems from practical experience, not magical insight. What follows is the performance of your life. You demonstrate your two-stage fermentation process step by step, explaining the natural chemical reactions that improve flavor and preservation. You produce written testimonies from women you have helped, showing that your advice involved escape routes and practical solutions rather than supernatural intervention. Most powerfully, you turn the accusation of corrupting other women into a celebration of female intelligence and capability. I am accused of teaching women to think for themselves, to question arrangements that endanger their lives, to seek alternatives to situations that would destroy them. You declare, if this is corruption, then I am guilty. If helping a woman escape a murderous husband is witchcraft, then I embrace the title. If showing young girls that they have choices beyond silent submission is evil, then I am the devil's own servant. The crowd murmurs at your boldness, but you press on. But if these things are actually the natural rights of human beings created in God's image, if women possess souls capable of reason and judgment just as men do, then what I have done is not corruption but liberation. The trial continues for hours, with witnesses called and evidence presented from both sides. Edmund's advocates paint you as a dangerous rebel who threatens the natural order. Your supporters present you as a skilled craftswoman who has overcome adversity through intelligence and hard work. In the end, The verdict comes down to a single question. Is a woman who refuses to accept the fate others choose for her a witch, or is she simply human? The judges deliberate as the crowd waits in tense silence. You sit with Thomas and your allies, acutely aware that the next few minutes will determine whether you live to see another sunset. When the chief judge rises to deliver the verdict, the hall falls silent as a tomb. After careful consideration of all evidence presented, this court finds the defendant, Isadora Ashworth, ... double quotes, the pause seems to last forever, double quotes, ... not guilty of the charges of witchcraft brought against her. The hall erupts in chaos. Your supporters cheer while Edmund's faction shouts protests. You collapse into Thomas's arms, overwhelmed by relief and exhaustion. But even as you celebrate this victory, you know that the larger battle continues. Other women face similar accusations, similar impossible choices, similar threats to their very existence. As you leave the hall, a free woman, Lady Catherine takes your arm with a smile of deep satisfaction. This is only the beginning, she says. Today, you proved that a woman can stand trial for witchcraft and emerge victorious. Tomorrow, we use that victory to help other women do the same. Your story has become larger than your individual fate. You are no longer just Isadora Ashworth, the blacksmith's daughter who chose love over duty. You have become a symbol of what women can achieve when they refuse to accept the limitations others place upon them. The question now is what you will do with the freedom you have fought so hard to win. Epilogue: The legacy of choice. 5 years have passed since the trial that nearly cost you your life, and London, in the spring of 1352, feels like a different world entirely. The small brewery you and Thomas established has grown into one of the most respected establishments in the city. Your innovative techniques, now adopted by brewers throughout England. Your marriage has deepened into a partnership of equals, bound not by legal obligation, but by genuine love and shared purpose. You stand in the courtyard of what was once the Prancing Pony, now expanded and renamed the Free Woman's Inner Place, where women traveling alone or fleeing impossible situations can find safe harbor and honest work. Goodwife Marsh, now in her 70s, still runs the establishment with an iron hand. But she has passed much of the daily management to younger women who understand the unique challenges facing their guests. Another letter from York, Thomas says, approaching with a bundle of correspondence that has become depressingly familiar. 3 sisters whose father plans to marry them all to the same man. A widower with holdings large enough to absorb their combined dowries. You take the letter with a sigh. Such requests have become commonplace as word spreads of your success in establishing alternatives for women trapped by circumstance. What began as your individual fight for freedom has evolved into something larger, an underground network that helps desperate women find new paths. Can we help them? Lady Catherine is already making inquiries, Thomas replies. Her contacts in York may be able to arrange apprenticeships for the sisters with sympathetic guildmasters. It will not be easy, but it is possible. The work is dangerous. Edmund Thornfield, though defeated in court, has never abandoned his desire for revenge. He has funded similar accusations against other women, turning witch hunting into a systematic campaign against female independence. 3 women you helped have been burned as witches in other cities, their only crime being the desire to choose their own lives. But for every tragedy, there are also victories. Margaret's cousin escaped an arranged marriage to become a successful merchant in her own right. A young woman from Kent avoided becoming a convent prisoner by demonstrating exceptional skill as a scribe. A miller's daughter from Essex proved her worth as a mathematician and now manages accounts for a consortium of wool merchants. There is other news, Thomas continues, his expression growing serious. Father Benedict has word from Rome. The Church is considering new policies regarding marriage consent. Some progressive voices argue that forced marriages violate Christian principles. The possibility that your individual rebellion might contribute to broader change fills you with hope and terror in equal measure. Change comes slowly to institutions like the church, and those who advocate for it often pay a heavy price. And Edmund, still alive, still bitter, still dangerous, Thomas admits. But age and failures have diminished his influence. His latest attempt to have you declared a heretic was dismissed without consideration. You nod, unsurprised. Edmund Thornfield has become a cautionary tale himself, a man whose obsession with controlling one woman destroyed his reputation and fortune. His remaining years will be spent in obscurity, while your influence continues to grow. A commotion in the inn's main room draws your attention. A young woman has arrived, her clothes travel-stained and her face bearing the hollow look of desperation you have learned to recognize. She cannot be more than 16, yet her eyes hold the weight of impossible choices. "Please," she says as you approach, "I seek the woman called Isadora. I am told she helps those who have nowhere else to turn." "I am Isadora Ashworth," you reply gently. "Tell me your story." What emerges is painfully familiar. The girl, Sarah, is the daughter of a blacksmith. The irony is not lost on you, whose father plans to marry her to an elderly lord known for his cruelty to servants. She has heard whispers of a woman in London who helps girls escape such fates, who proves that alternatives exist for those brave enough to seek them. "I have no money, no skills, no family who will support me," Sarah says, tears streaming down her face. "But I would rather die than marry that monster." You take her hands, feeling the calluses that mark her as a worker, seeing in her face the same desperation you once felt. "Death is not your only alternative to an unwanted marriage," you say firmly. "There are other paths, though they require courage and sacrifice. What must I do first? You must eat and rest. Tomorrow we will assess your skills and interests. Goodwife Marsh needs help in the kitchens, and I can teach you the basics of brewing. Within a month, you could be earning enough to support yourself. Within a year, you could apply for guild membership." Sarah's eyes widen with disbelief. "A guild would accept someone like me. Someone like you accepted me," you reply with a smile. Courage and skill matter more than birth or connections, though the path is not easy. As you help Sarah settle into a small room above the inn, you reflect on how far you have traveled from that terrified 15-year-old who once faced the same impossible choice. The blacksmith's daughter who fled her village has become a master brewer, guild member, and advocate for women's rights to choose their own destinies. That evening, you and Thomas walk along the Thames as the sun sets over London's countless chimneys. The city has grown around you, changing as you have changed, offering opportunities that once seemed impossible. "Do you ever regret it?" Thomas asks, his arm around your waist. "The comfortable life you could have had if you had simply accepted your father's arrangement." "Comfortable?" You laugh, though not without affection for the naive girl you once were. "Thomas, I would have been dead within a year. Edmund Thornfield was a murderer, not a husband. There was no comfortable life waiting for me in that direction. But the fear, the uncertainty, the constant struggle have made me stronger than I ever imagined possible," you finish. 5 years ago, I was property to be sold. Today, I am a master of my own craft, a member of a powerful guild, and a woman who helps others find their own freedom. Which life would you choose?" Thomas kisses your forehead gently. "I would choose any life that included you, but I am proud of the woman you have become, the courage you have shown, the difference you have made." You stand together at the river's edge, watching merchant ships navigate the dark water. Each vessel carries its own cargo of dreams and ambitions, hopes and fears. How many of those dreams belong to women who believe they have no choices? How many could be saved with the right guidance and support? The next morning brings news that changes everything once again. A rider arrives from your home village with word that your father has died, leaving behind only debts and the bitter knowledge that his greed nearly destroyed his daughter's life. More surprisingly, the message includes a formal request from the village council. They want you to return, Thomas says, reading the official document with amazement. They are offering you your father's property and asking you to establish a brewery in the village. The irony is overwhelming. The same community that would have watched silently as you were married off to a murderer now seeks to benefit from your success. The skills they dismissed as worthless when you were an unmarried girl are now valuable enough to warrant an official invitation. Will you consider it? Thomas asks. You think of Sarah, sleeping peacefully in the room above, dreaming perhaps of a future she can choose for herself. You think of the letters that arrive weekly from desperate women seeking alternatives to impossible situations. You think of the network you have built, the lives you have touched, the changes you have helped bring about. London is my home now, you say finally. My work is here, with women who need advocates and allies. Let the village find another brewer, one who will serve them without challenging their assumptions about women's proper place. The decision feels right, final, complete. You have come full circle from the frightened girl who fled in the night to the confident woman who can reject even generous offers that do not align with her values. As weeks turn to months and months to years, your story becomes part of London's folklore. Ballads are sung in taverns about the blacksmith's daughter who defied a powerful lord and won her freedom in court. Your brewery becomes a pilgrimage site for women, seeking inspiration and practical advice about changing their circumstances. But perhaps most importantly, you have proven that the question posed by your story, could you handle being a woman in the Middle Ages, has a surprising answer. Yes, with enough courage, intelligence, and support, a woman could not only handle medieval life, but could change it for the better. The girl who once measured her worth by her father's approval and her marriageability has become a woman who measures her success by the number of other women she helps find their own paths to freedom. The daughter who was once property has become a master who owns her own destiny. And in a small room above the Free Woman's Inn, Sarah practices the brewing techniques you have taught her, dreaming of the day when she too will stand before guildmasters and demand recognition based on skill rather than birth. The cycle continues, each generation of women standing a little taller because those who came before refused to accept the limitations placed upon them. Your story, which began with the question of whether you could survive being a woman in medieval times, has become proof that survival is not enough. Sometimes, with courage and determination, it is possible to thrive, to change the world, and to leave it better than you found it. The blacksmith's daughter who chose love over duty has become something far greater, a symbol of what women can achieve when they refuse to accept that their choices belong to others. In the end, you did more than handle being a woman in the Middle Ages. You redefined what it meant to be a woman in your time, and your legacy echoes through the centuries that follow. Fim.